We're live.
Is it happening?
It is.
So first note, apologies to you and the listeners for all of the dogs running around in the background on this episode. We are dog sitting this, not a whole week, but a couple of days. And so you'll hear lots of nails on hardwood.
How many dogs? You have a dog of your own, right?
I have one dog of my own plus one dog of dog sitting equals 2 dogs.
Okay. Well, count yourself lucky because we're pet sitting too right now. Some ring-necked doves.
Ring-necked doves.
Yeah. So they're called that because after living with them for a little while, that's what you'd like to do to them. They're like, you know, that sort of beautiful, evocative sound of turtle doves cooing in the forest.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I am so sick of that sound.
We need it on the podcast. That is absolute just calming. That's what we need. That's what our listeners need.
Yeah, except it will be all the way through the podcast very loudly. I've done my best to seal myself off, but they might break through at some point. There's only 3 of the little buggers, but yeah, wow.
Ouch.
They are, yeah. So if anyone ever offers you that opportunity, I would turn it down.
How long do you have the doves?
Not very much longer because we're going on holiday or vacation on Friday. So I think they're going back to their rightful owner at that point. It's been a delight. It's been a pleasure. Really, no, the pleasure's been all ours.
Good. All right. Well, how long have you had the doves?
It feels like about 200 years, but I think it's a couple of months at least. It's been a while.
I've seen a lot of. I didn't see any dove photos, but I've seen a lot of photos of you on Instagram recently.
Oh.
In various orienteering outfits.
Yeah, you know, a bit of cosplay never did any harm.
Looks like you guys are winning as a family, matching outfits. That's good. How'd you do in the races?
Yeah, you know, good. The races around our way are pretty small, so quite often it's, you know, there might only be a handful of people in a category, but the kids like it, and it gets us out of the house, running around in the forest.
Nice. They
keep coming back though, so I'm gonna have to try them on some harder courses if we really want them to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good. It's one of those great like analog things, right? It's been made easier to sort of watch and follow and learn with technology, but technology hasn't really penetrated. I mean, it can't penetrate the actual sport because the whole point of it is that you've got to use a map and a compass. So training and stuff like that's got easier, and spectating has got easier with GPS on athletes and so on. Mm-hmm. But it's you know, fundamentally still the kind of scouts/guides navigation experience. It's good.
You know what you ought to do is give them a sextant and let them figure out
the fundamentals of maritime navigation from first principles. Yeah,
it doesn't work in the world. You can't.
Yeah, you can do orienteering at night, but you still use a map and a compass, and you just use a very bright headlamp.
Oh, headlamp!
Yeah,
like a kerosene lantern.
Yeah, just a flaming handheld torch burning, held aloft. Yeah, there's all sorts that you can orienteer on bikes. We did canoe orienteering the other day. That was quite good. There's a bizarrely underwater orienteering, which I don't know anything about, but seems very strange. Yeah, fun for all the family.
They make you do that kind of stuff when you get your super mega ultra dive certification, whatever. Use your compass and figure out which way you have to do triangles and hexagon. It's like, I'm never gonna do this.
That's
So,
kind of what they're doing. Yeah, they swim around in a lake with these huge fins, and
scooters.
I don't think it's a scooter. I think they're swimming, but I guess it's an oxygen tank that they hold in front of them. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I Yeah,
So
okay.
wackos, dude.
I don't think it's part of the propulsion, but I don't know why it wouldn't be on their back. Anyway, I don't really know anything about it, like I say, but I've seen it on YouTube, so it must exist as a real thing.
Okay, we're there. Okay, so first topic of the day. How did you hack YouTube and get us in today?
I don't know. I changed, like, the new settings are totally weird, and I don't recognize anything. There's like studio thing, and you go there, and it seems to just be a bunch of videos, but nothing to press on that says "do it now." I switched something. There were two options for like how you create videos or something. There was like studio or creator, and I switched it to creator, and then it looked familiar, and I was able to do what we've always done.
All right, so they are indeed sunsetting the YouTube Live through. No, that's not true. What do they call Hangouts on Air, which was
yes,
back end powering our thing on August 1st. So this is likely the last one that we'll do without having to figure something else out.
yeah.
So
Okay, well, I see that now. There's a little thing showing up in the broadcast window here, but it says for quick streaming, go to youtube.com/webcam.
So I did that, and you can't invite people. It's only a single person streaming video.
Okay, so our travel allowance is just about to go up substantially.
It is.
We'll have to rent a studio halfway, like in Minneapolis or something.
Oh, couldn't we pick like the Bahamas?
Well, I guess I could get down there. Yeah, sure.
Okay, see you there. So I hear you've been busy.
Yeah, we're doing the training thing, the training bug, and then in between, I've been squeezing in trips all over the place, which is crazy, and I need to stop doing it. Because you go, oh yeah, that'll be easy. I could come over there for 2 days, and then you remember it's an entire day of travel each direction, and there goes another week, kind of thing. But yeah, we've been doing a lot of stuff.
Someone told me you guys did like 6 courses in June.
Yeah, something like that. In June, we did 3 solid weeks of teaching. And at one point, there were 5 of us teaching like simultaneously. Yeah, it was crazy. And in a way, those compressed things are a bit easier to manage because at least there's just one event happening, and we can like build stuff around it. And get everybody there, and there's only one set of hotels and everything. But it's awesome. Yeah, we've touched probably nearly 350 people, I think, this year again. So yeah, there's this whole movement. There's this swell of people. And what's really been cool this year actually has been that we've started offering sort of more advanced type topics around more specialized machine learning stuff. We've got a course that we call Mastery, where we get into like object-oriented packaging, command line interfaces, testing, stuff like that. And so we've seen people coming back to those and sort of growing their skills as scientist coders. So that's been really cool to see. And we've definitely noticed the hackathons we've been doing lately that the projects are getting more sophisticated, more ambitious, and that's been cool. So yeah, it's all going in the right direction.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't follow social media much anymore, and that's mostly where I see what you're up to. But every time we chat, and every time you pop up, you're doing more talks. And you were just at Sci-Fi, right? So you're still finding some time for awesomeness. play?
I would. Well, sci-fi is pretty awesome.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. You're finding time to go do stuff like sci-fi. You're not totally crunched by client stuff.
Yeah. I was at Sci-Fi. That was really interesting. Every time you go to Sci-Fi, there's always like this list of action items that you have when you leave. A lot of times, I find when I leave a conference, there are a bullet list of things that I want to read up on, study up on. When I leave Sci-Fi, there's a much larger list of bullets of like actual things that you can just use right now and try to integrate them into your workflow. So it's been 2 days since SciPy ended, and I've already integrated 2 new tools into my various aspects of my team's workflows.
Okay, that's cool.
So that's pretty sweet. One is Scorch. Have you used Scorch?
Nope.
It's nice. It's just like basically like a convenience library that wraps PyTorch that allows you to basically integrate your PyTorch models into the scikit-learn framework. So it gives you an estimator wrapper for any type of model that you build using vanilla PyTorch. And then you can use all the scikit-learn API stuff on top of your models, which is pretty stinking sweet.
Yeah, that's cool.
Including like pipelining, which is awesome. And what was the other one? Yellowbrick, scikit Yellowbrick, which is basically just like a bunch of machine learning specific visualizations that are built on top of Matplotlib. And it's totally not overdone, which I love. So it's literally like a confusion matrix, for instance. Like we've all written 100 of them, right? And the whole point is stop writing one every time you work, right? Just just use the method. So it's really already, it's been 2 days and it's already been a time saver for us.
Okay, that's great.
So that's cool.
Yeah,
check them out. Lots of other
was there anything that was like, sometimes I don't know, well, I say sometimes, I've only been twice, but it seems like there was often a bit of a theme or meme that was going around, like every other person would mention I don't know, Dask, I think it was last time, and out of core stuff. What were the buzzy things this time around?
There was a lot of stuff on optimization. Like there was a lot of stuff on ancillary or like related to machine learning, but not what you would call traditional machine learning work. So for instance, there was a talk about doing optimization of parameter spaces to find subsets of feature regions, like regions in a feature space, so that you could select out representative examples from high dimensional feature spaces, so that you could like cull down a training set for use on some reasonable hardware. Which, by the way, I need to look up the guy's name. That talk was hilarious. It was awesome. His whole example. This is a if you've never been to SciPy, it's a fairly academic conference. It's like a room full of nerds, and there's this guy on stage talking about this optimization, and he's doing so by way of example of Gossip Girl, which is a TV show that is about dramatic teenager high school life, and it was hilarious. So they were attempting to predict, no spoilers here because I don't know what the answer is, but they were attempting to predict what the main characters. There was like a narrator character that has sort of omniscience over the whole show or something, and they tried to predict which character that was. So it was pretty funny. It was very funny, and it was just a well done talk. So a lot of the talks, as you know, at SciPy are just heartfelt and fun.
Yeah, that topic's kind of interesting, and it doesn't sound unrelated to sort of trying to pick out representative realizations from sets of simulations and things like that, right? Sort of like what are the end members, as it were, in some unseen latent space of of examples. Like if you're going to go, if you can only simulate 10 things, which 10 of the 1,000 realizations you've made should you be simulating? So that's an interesting topic. It comes up a lot in the hackathons that we've been doing internally and externally. There's almost always somebody who's thinking about, like, how do I make sense of all of these reservoir models or all of these simulations I'm doing of seismic, like microseismic or 4D seismic or something like that.
How do you handle it? I mean, there must be, I mean, in that case, you have physical parameters, so there are non-physical constraints you have to satisfy. Is there some sort of probabilistic suite of stuff that you use to condition those simulations?
No, I mean, I feel like right now what most people are doing is just really naive, some kind of sorting on some parameter that you do understand, and then trying to take, percentiles out of that. It's not very satisfactory and feels a bit arbitrary, especially because if you look at something like a static reservoir model, two realizations that might be right next to each other in terms of their, if you sort them on volume or something like that, or average porosity or something, two realizations that might be right next to each other might be completely different geologically, right? Geometrically, they're completely at odds. So it becomes far too arbitrary to just choose one or two dimensions to sort them on and select from. So I feel like that's where the dissatisfaction is coming from, and I don't know that anyone's nailed that, dealt with it properly.
Well, I suppose that you could attempt to start solving the problem more holistically by using dimensionality reduction to select the characteristics of your results, but that is also naive, right?
Yeah, I mean, the geometry thing's really interesting, and actually been thinking recently about a project that might get going where I think we'd be looking at geometric objects, so 3-dimensional or even 4-dimensional objects, and trying to do machine learning with those in order to recognize the shapes of things. It's not something I've thought about much at all, but of course, like anything else, right? You Google it, and sure enough, there's practically a journal called Geometric Machine Learning or whatever. And there's all these people out there thinking about, like, of course, a lot of it comes from things like augmented reality, where people are actually trying to recognize physical objects from photography or what have you. But I'm not aware of anyone trying to apply stuff like that to 3-dimensional geological models.
It's been done.
Okay. Yeah.
So building up systems to do content-based indexing, I find really fascinating. And let me give you an example in a second, because I just looked up this guy's name and I wanted to mention it so I didn't forget it. The talk I just mentioned is Jacob Schreiber from University of Washington. And he wrote the name of the talk was Submodular Selection for Data Summarization. He wrote a library called Apricot, which is open source, and you can use it right now to do exactly what we were just talking about.
Okay. So that was the Gossip Girl talk.
Yes. So you can figure out who Gossip Girl is. So it seems like you could do some sort of characterization of 3-dimensional or n-dimensional objects using a fairly naive image processing system like a CNN, right? So let's say you had some data, some 3-dimensional data, and you had some geobodies contained in there. If you knew where those geobodies were, you could select out that subset of the data and then run an image classifier on that. And presumably you have multiple instances and you have n classes, and you make is that a dove I heard in the background?
No.
Or some other bird. Okay. Yeah, I think that would work, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, where are these images coming from when you've got 3-dimensional objects?
But you tell me, you're the geophysicist.
Yeah.
There's a lot of geo things that are three-dimensional, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I suspect there's, they're related to graphs as well, right? So obviously these things are representable as graphs. So down the rabbit hole you go.
Oh man, let me just one step further. So imagine, in graph space, you're not really in like a certainly not Euclidean space, but you're not even really in like a physical dimensionality that makes any sense. Continuous manifold, maybe you would call that. And so distance measures don't have the same type of meaning that they might have in some sort of like voxel-wise classification scheme. But what I find really fascinating, and in fact, I'm actually giving a webinar about this and some other things on Wednesday, is that you can use the structure, the topology of the graph in its non-physical structural characteristics to typify types of interactions between entities. And on Wednesday, the thing I'll talk about is fraud detection. But they can be used for all sorts of things. So if you think about the case where you have that physical three-dimensional object and you have like whatever n classes and n examples of each class, you can build a regular voxel-wise or pixel-wise classifier to detect which one is which. But if you use something like actually, you can even use, and this is what I'll claim on Wednesday because I tried a little thing like this. If you use even a very simple learning architecture, you can extract topology metrics from a graph, which are then used to inject it as features into some easy peasy classifier to figure out what types of interactions those neighbors have. So in the case of fraud detection, the thing that we've done time and time again is use topology metrics of subgraphs to figure out which monetary exchanges are fraudulent exchanges and which are normal. It's anomaly detection, but it's like in this weird non-physical, like sort of non-physically continuous space.
Yes. I would say I see, but I don't quite see. But I mean, it's So it's about relationships in that case, I guess. But it's about the transactions are edges.
Yeah, the transactions are edges in that example, and you can imagine a case where you have like a subgraph of, let's say, whatever 10 entities who are all maybe businesses. So those are the nodes, and depending on, and this is a temporal system too, so it gets a little bit weird, but like depending on even if you take out the temporal component and just assume just like static monetary transactions, potentially like things that look like a circular exchange could be money laundering rings, right? That's a pretty bad example, but it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to do that type of analysis. You don't even have to know what metrics you're looking for. Just extract as many as you can think of and feed them into a network that's deep enough to delineate those cross terms, and away she goes.
Cool. Yeah. Graphs are, I mean, those are another thing, I guess. I can't remember if we talked about hypergraphs already on the show. Before,
we did, but I would love to talk about them because I had no idea what they were until I very, very belatedly read your comment on Slack.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things where I would read about them and have no idea why I needed them, but then I sort of discovered a thing, and you're like, what is this thing that I've made? And you start like Googling around, and it's like, oh, okay, I think this is a hypergraph. And all I was coming at it from. Do you remember we talked about Markov chains before?
Yep.
And Markov chains is just like this thing, has transitions into this thing. So A can go to B, can go to C, can go to F, and that those are expressible as a graph. But if you take two steps it's like A goes to B goes to D. Now you can't really represent that in a graph anymore. Another way to put it is you can't represent those relationships in a matrix. You need like a cube. You need a 3D matrix to represent them. So now you need a hypergraph, and then you get into that seems to get even more into set theory, because I guess there's a big link between set theory and graph theory in the first place. But the hypergraphs are about sets of where edges are represented not as one node to another node, but as sets of nodes. So these hypergraphs that come from multi-step Markov chains are quite specific kinds of hypergraphs where the sets always have the same size, so they're uniform. They always have, say, 2 or 3 or 4 members, depending on how many steps you're looking at. So yeah, I haven't taken that stuff any further because I got a bit confused about how to visualize them.
Oh man.
Because you can make anything in NumPy, but it's like, oh, I have a 6-dimensional array. What am I going to do with that? And all you can really do is look at 2 dimensions at a time, maybe 3 dimensions at a time. So really, you end up just looking at graphs. But it's, these things, you got to do something on the 6-hour flight from Heathrow to Toronto. And I do actually look forward to those long flights, because I do get a chance, especially because they've all got Wi-Fi now. So I could actually, I used to enjoy just coding and not having access to Wi-Fi and only being able to write code. But now I could also look stuff up.
Yeah.
Actually be slightly more effective. So, but for some reason, I haven't allowed myself to get into crap like email. I'm not sure. It's probably a horrible idea to do email on a plane anyway, because who knows? I don't know. It's people all around.
What's this?
I'm not that paranoid, but
Get a nice VPN. Did I ever tell you? Oh, here's a word of warning to our listeners, in case I never said this. I probably already did.
Is this a threat?
No. Pro tip. It was a pro tip from someone who set up their own VPN. So years ago, I set up my own VPN using Algo VPN, which is great. Okay. It works wonders. That's awesome. And part of the impetus was that it would be cheaper than paying for a VPN service. And it turns out that because of all the data, so you set up a server in the cloud, right? But because of all the data that I was transferring through the server, it ended up being more expensive than paying for a managed service. So there you go. Okay,
so it seemed like a nice idea. Yeah, I've been actually quite a recent convert to VPNs, mainly because Rob, the guy that we hired last year, is really into all that stuff, and I just don't really pay attention. So he's like, "You don't use a VPN?"
Yeah. That's what I've been saying for years.
Yeah.
Did you? What kind of headphones you got there? Wireless? There's noise canceling?
These, yes.
That's why
I'm happy with them though.
That's why you can't hear them behind you.
Dove canceling headphones. Yeah. No, I'm not that happy with them, to be honest. They're just I can't remember how much they cost. They're maybe sort of the lower end, $200 maybe. The Sony's, and they're fine and everything. They get a little bit uncomfortable after
a podcast. I
guess all headphones do. No, more like sort of 2-3 hours. I start getting a bit. I can feel them on the top of my head, and the noise cancelling, it isn't fantastic. In fact, I used the ones that they gave me on the plane the other day, because you had to use them, I think, for the entertainment system, and the noise cancelling on there was way better than it is on here. So I was like, oh
man.
Oh
well. So what's next? You going on vacation?
Oh, yeah, going on vacation, orienteering vacation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, for a week, and then we're going to Prince Edward Island, which is the smallest province in Canada.
It's beautiful
but
though.
one of the oldest. It was where the whole idea of Canada was originally hatched or signed, I guess. Anyway, PEI, and we're going there because my daughter got into this really cool sounding camp. It's like a veterinary camp at the university where it's like take a little cohort of students and they kind of wear white coats and have this kind of really intense daily schedule of doing veterinary school stuff. And she kind of, you had to apply for it months and months ago, and she got a place. So we were like, oh wow, that sounds cool. But it's kind of miles away, so we have to move there for a week while she does this camp. But it sounds really cool, so I'm a little bit jealous.
That's very interesting. I have a friend named Matt who works on Prince Edward Island.
Really?
Yeah. He moved from New Orleans. He worked for the new. I used to be a volunteer diver for the New Orleans Aquarium for many years, and he used to be something like the dive program coordinator or something like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But
what does he do there now?
He has something. He finished his marine biology degree and is now doing research on some type of aquatic life specific to PEI.
Okay. Yeah, it's right on the St. Lawrence on one side, and then the other side, there's the Northumberland Strait. It's very shallow stretch of water that gets very warm, so it's like a really unusual ecosystem. I guess, quite a unique spot. And so I can imagine how it's a really interesting place to do that kind of work. And it's really interesting, this sort of weird little, I mean, Nova Scotia's already kind of cut off. It feels a bit like, I don't know, a parallel universe where everything's kind of 3 decades ago. But PEI really is like, a time
safari.
Yeah, well, I mean, even because Charlottetown, the biggest town, feels like a village basically. There's a university there, and it's like a full-on province. So there's like a provincial government and all the rest of it. But I mean, it feels like a little town. So it's very sweet. Beautiful beaches, like it's absolutely gorgeous, and lots of potatoes.
They grow native there, or?
Yeah, well, they just grow really well there. So I think probably a lot of and McCain's, it comes from New Brunswick, I guess. I think it was a New Brunswick thing. New Brunswick is the next province, the big province next to PEI. So there's a real kind of potato chip, French fry empire thing going on in the region. There's potatoes everywhere.
Nice. Cool.
You got to get your economy somewhere, I guess, right? And that's a big part of theirs.
It sounds like a nice vacation. Are you guys going to? Are you going to work while you're there? Or are you completely offline and chill out and see the sights, or what?
Well, the first week I'll definitely be offline. The second week I'll probably try and do a little bit. Like I've been completely dysfunctional for months now, basically. But I mean, to anyone who's emailed me or even reached out on Slack and stuff recently, I'm so sorry. I've been just horrible lately at getting back to people. So I'm in a big hole. I need to dig my way out of it.
Well, chill out.
So I'll do a bit of that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I can eat bags of chips and stare out to sea. And
go for a run on the beach.
Yeah.
That'll burn you up.
The weather's really nice here, but it's not that hot. It's okay.
Yeah, running in the sand is hard.
Yeah, no, that's true.
The last time I went this is probably not something anyone wants to know, but anyway, the last time I went running on the beach, I didn't make it nearly as far as I thought I was going to, because it is way harder to run in the sand than it is to run on the trail or the road.
Yeah, well, the soft sand is knackering, and the hard sand is brutal. Like it's hard. It feels. I don't know if there's something weirdly like thixotropic about the sort of, I guess it's saturated with water basically, but it feels harder than running on pavement somehow. Maybe, well, last time I did it, I ran in bare feet, which probably is part of it, because you would never run on pavement in bare feet. But that seems like such a nice, lovely thing to do, right? Run along the beach in bare feet, but it totally destroyed my feet.
Yeah, run in soft sand. Bring your water. Go 1 mile.
Our beaches here are often like sand, then pebbles, then sand, then pebbles. Yeah. Anyway, yes. What about you? You got vacation happening?
No. I don't know. I feel like I just got back from, I had some meetings in San Francisco, and then I, weirdly enough, had a meeting in San Diego, and my stepbrother lives there. So I spent the weekend, hung out, went to the beach, whatever. We went sailing finally. I haven't been sailing in years, so that was cool.
Nice.
Yeah, no, we're heads down over here, just kind of doing our thing, which is good. You definitely don't want a staycation in Texas in the summertime.
You're still enjoying Austin?
Yes, indeed. It is a lively town these days. Lots of things going on.
Yeah.
Every night, every day. It's so much fun to. Oh, I won't make you jealous again with me talk of meetups, but lots of good ideas flowing around.
Yeah, good. Nice. So, what's I'm just looking at the clock. I'm wondering how big of a question I want to ask. But yeah, what's the rest of your year look like? High level. Are you getting busier? Are you?
Why? Oh my God. So we have our 2019 summer intern program going on right now. And that will go on until the end of the summer. Obviously, we are generating quite a lot of really interesting tools for ourselves to use internally, and indeed working on some external projects as well for clients. But the internal tooling that we're building right now is going to take us probably, the better part of 6 months to sort of consume and get out into the marketplace. So I think we're going to be doing a lot of different types of outreach using that tooling. More on that later, I suppose, but definitely working on that. We are working on a couple of interesting projects right now. One actually is in the geophysics space, which is cool. And we're doing lots and lots of stuff in the supply chain world. So we have I've mentioned this before, but we really have built out some pretty robust tools in the the fulfillment space. So we built these reinforcement learning systems, like suites of agents, and their interacting components to route the delivery of freight goods, using a variety of shipping modalities, air, truck, ocean, whatever.
What goods did you say? Rate goods?
Freight goods.
Freight, beg your pardon.
Bulk shipping items. Using a variety of shipping modalities, but and the hard part is that we're operating under real business constraints. So it's not like an academic like optimizer. It actually,
right.
For instance, what we have these rules in there, like drivers of trucks are only allowed to drive so many hours before they need to take a federally mandated break. Same thing with pilots, and then there's preferred customer lists, and you have to deliver shipments for priority customers within X% of the delivery window or whatever. You can imagine just hundreds of these types of rules, and that's a really, really hard thing to do in any type of optimization setting, but especially a reinforcement setting. And so I'm particularly excited about that one.
Yeah, constraints. That's interesting, because without wanting to go down a massive rabbit hole, but since we've talked about it so often before, the old rainbow stuff. So right, so recognizing rainbow color maps. So recently, I guess it came up again because of the Markov chain stuff. But then it also came up at a hackathon we were at recently, and I thought, I reckon you could just do this with neural networks. Never mind, like, forget trying to do it sort of, analytically, I guess, but just train a neural net to map. I mean, essentially, all the neural network has to actually do is order the colors that it finds in an image. Like, that's all you're asking it for.
Yep.
So I got one working that sort of did that, but it was also trying to guess the colors. Like, it was trying to do both things. I was basically, because I was just giving it a bunch of pseudo color maps and saying, look, here's the map and here's the color bar that goes with it. Here's the map, here's the color bar, here's the map, here's the color bar. And it does decently well, but it often ends up giving you brown and purple and kind of mixed colors, where it's trying to get colors out, but it's ending up in this sort of smudgy part of there's null space, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, actually, I know what the colors are. Like, I can give you the colors, just put them in order.
Yeah.
So, and then my flight ended. So I'm like, okay. So I haven't gone back to that problem yet. But how can I get it to just do this ordering problem? I want to give it the colors and say, sort these. Like, what am I asking it for there? I can't quite get my head around that.
Sort of like dictionary order, like index.
Yeah, it's color sorting.
Yeah.
But I think that the colors will end up being sorted. No, you see, they are actually sortable sort of numerically. Like, it's not just a cultural, do you know what I mean? They're not arbitrary. It's not like learning words where it's like, there are actually, the colors that are adjacent in the RGB3 space are next to each other, right, in the ordering. So I mean, it should, I think, in principle, be learnable, but I don't know what the training set looks like for that task. Can't quite get my head around the problem, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. You could. So are you okay? So you want two systems eventually, right? You want one to detect which colors in the image, which is the easy part.
I feel like I can sort of do that with the like k-means. Like, I can sort of just say, look, here's 128 colors that I found. What order must they go in?
Yeah.
Given this image.
You know something about the power spectral density, right? So you know something about the absolute like intensity. I wonder if you can find end members and descend from there or ascend from there.
Yeah, well, that's sort of what the Markov chain method tries to do. It's just that as soon as you introduce a bit of noise, it gets a bit unstable and it's a bit hard to noise. There is noise because there's extra annotations, there's image compression, there's just junk. There's interpolation going on, so the color set isn't really pure. But anyway, getting closer, I'm inching. It might end up being this weird kind of hybrid solution where it's like, I don't know, multiple models are sort of making decisions about, oh, this one is grayscale, this one is this kind of thing, this one is that kind of thing. Like, I'll deal with them separately. But
yeah, the meta modeling universe.
Exactly. Sure. So, okay, anything else you want to add? Because the top of the show, it seemed like there was something you wanted to say, but maybe not.
What was it? I don't remember.
I don't know. You just seemed like you were being really sort of cagey about something.
I absolutely have no idea what I was talking about.
Okay. In that case, just tell me what you're reading.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you what I was reading. Well, I'll start with what I am reading. I'm reading the new Neil Stephenson book called Fall, and I like Stevenson as an author. I've read Cryptonomicon and Snow Crash and Seven Eves. I thought those were great books. This one, not my jam, I must say. No.
What's a different style, or what's?
It's almost fantasy. It's so I don't know, not really my thing. But I'm almost finished with that. However, I did want to mention the book that I read before this one, which I wanted to have an Undersampled Radio about in and of itself. It was so good. It's called The Code Book. Did I mention it already?
Okay. What, Simon Singh?
Yes.
That's such an awesome book.
That's such an awesome book, man.
Yeah, it's like one of the best books ever.
Oh man. So it's really good. It's a history of cryptography, and it was written in like the 90s, so it's not complete, but it's just really well written. It can go down into the details if you want. I mean, there's appendices with like pseudocode, like it goes deep, but it's also written in a narrative style, which is compelling and fun. So I was, and as you know, I have a sort of a penchant for cryptographic puzzles. And so I was getting so into it when I was reading that book that I tried to order a textbook about quantum cryptography, but I couldn't get it on my Kindle. So I finally broke down, and for the first time in like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I actually bought a paper book about post-quantum cryptography. So I'm excited about that. How about you? What are you reading?
Well, on the paper book subject, we just built 2 more bookshelves in our house.
Nice.
That's how out of control paper books are around here.
I just need that for my Kindle.
Yeah, you see, part of me really yearns for that minimalist 10,000 books in your pocket digital thing, but part of me just loves books. Physical books, and I can't get my head around. I've only got about 40 things on my Kindle, maybe 50, and I don't know what's in there. I've no idea, but I know where every single book in my house is. I probably have 8,000 books, and I can locate them all. It's kind of weird. So
decimal or what?
What? Dewey Decimal? No, that's the thing. Actually, they used to be organized somewhat. Not like I've never been a sorter, but there were like fiction, non-fiction chunks. But when we moved, like nearly 10 years ago, everything ended up getting a bit jumbled. But because they were packed in boxes that sort of made sense, bits of it make sense because there's like a box worth of books here and a box worth of books there. But I know where all the chunks are now. Yeah. It's pretty sad waste of what little brain I have left. Anyway, what am I reading? So I just started so like you, I just read something that I really loved. I think I've mentioned before, my favorite author is Magnus Mills. And so I just read one of the more recent, but it's not very new, Magnus Mills, called A Cruel Bird Came to the Nest and Looked In. Kind of a weird title, but it was classic Magnus Mills. So it was back to the sort of the style, because I read 1 or 2 that were a bit different, but this one was great. So I really enjoyed that. I finished it at the weekend. And I just started this book, Timefulness, by Marcia Bjornerud, who's an American geologist at like a college somewhere in the US. I can't remember where. And I'm only 1 chapter in, or 2. I guess I read the preface and the first chapter this weekend, and it's really nice. I really recommend it. It's I don't know, it's not. At least so far, it's not earth-shattering or anything, but it's just got a really nice turn of phrase. It feels really kind of honest and sort of true. Like I don't know, very simple ideas in a way, and sort of profound in a quiet, kind of understated way. It's not a grand kind of. It's not like reading Richard Dawkins or something like that, right? It's much more approachable than that, and better for it, I think. Actually, it seems like a really timefulness. Yeah. So the basic idea of the book is that society and decision makers and companies and society in general don't have an incredibly poor concept of deep time and time in general, and change, and ideas that geologists sort of almost take for granted, but if you were to sort of think about the equivalent level of ignorance in a spatial sense, it would be as if nobody knew where South America was, kind of thing. Like no one has any concept of what the Ice Age, even, never mind the Jurassic, never mind eons of billions of years before the Precambrian. So I think I doubt it will get read that widely. It's a pretty niche Princeton University Press kind of imprint and everything, but it deserves to be widely read, certainly by people like politicians. My God, the news these days, like it's at the point where I just seriously, I was just at the point where you just can't read it anymore. We've in our house, we've latched onto sport the last couple of weeks because there's so much amazing sport going on. You almost certainly didn't watch the cricket yesterday, but it was one of the most incredible games of anything that's ever happened, ever. And the Wimbledon final was yesterday. It was totally amazing. The Women's World Cup soccer was awesome. We were all watching that.
Meanwhile,
that's
this. Okay, I love it.
That's been the only current affairs that we now consume in this house, and we don't watch a lot of TV or anything, but the sport's been really good.
Nice.
Go and check out highlights from the England-New Zealand World Cup of Cricket final yesterday. 8-minute long video on the ICC website. It was a bizarre game.
I'm sure I wouldn't be able to tell it.
That was good.
All right, man.
Well, it's lovely to catch up. Nice to see you. You look well. You sound contented. Yeah, well, I keep forgetting there's purportedly an audience, but anyway.
I don't know how we're going to deliver this content next time, but we'll figure something out, and there may or may not be video accompanying it.
Yeah. See you then, everyone.
Bye-bye.